Hello, YouTube! Scott here, and I am back with another instant review of She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. Episode 8 is called Ribbit and Ribbit, which will make sense in a moment. And as a basic overview, okay, yeah, this is a good episode. It's well acted. Charlie Cox shows up as Daredevil, spoiler. And the reason why he's there, considering he's a lawyer from New York who just shows up in LA for one episode, it does make sense. The fight sequences were really cool. I suppose the plot doesn't move along like a whole lot, but oh my god, the ending. I suppose we should have seen this coming based on what happened in the last episode. How about I break it down for you, okay? So, Jennifer has to take on a new client who calls himself Leapfrog. He's clearly just like a rich kid who's calling himself a superhero. And he wants to sue Luke Jacobson. Remember him? Gender-swapped Ed Mode? Because he says that the costume that Luke made for him was faulty. Luke doesn't want to do that. Jen doesn't want to do that because, Luke makes her clothes. But her boss kind of insists because Leapfrog's dad is a client. Also, this guy Leapfrog really just into all the frog stuff. So, Jen wants to go and settle with Luke, but he refuses to believe that there's a problem with anything that he makes, which is not really surprising considering the ego in this guy. And it winds up going to court, and that's when Matt Murdock walks in. Now, nobody knows that he's Daredevil at this point, but Leapfrog brought his suit, his super suit. I wanted to say super suit a lot during this episode, to court, and Matt can tell, from a distance that Leapfrog was using jet fuel in the boosters that were on his suit to help him fly, which is weird because frogs don't fly. And since Luke specifically specified what kind of fuel to use, the case gets dismissed. Jen feels like an idiot, and Leapfrog is an idiot. But afterwards, Jen meets Matt in a bar, and this is Jen, mind you, at the time, not She-Hulk. They got kind of a meet-cute thing going, and she's clearly into him. But then she has to take off and deal with, Todd the douche, the guy with the She-Hulk fetish. And, I'm going to come back to this at the end, but there's a little bit more of that, I think. He's, trying to woo her, telling her that he bought this Wakandan spear at an auction, and I'm just thinking, so how have the Dora Milaje not shown up at some point and killed him? He's trying to turn it into a date, and she is totally not ready for this. So, she takes him out. Right, okay. And then she gets a call from Leapfrog saying that he needs her help. She shows up as She-Hulk, and who's coming after Leapfrog? Why, it's Daredevil! There's an interesting little fight scene between the two of them. The banter's nice, but the fact that, she never actually lays a hand on him until she does the clapping thing with the sound wave. And that's when she finds out that Leapfrog is actually the villain here because he kidnapped Luke to get him to make another suit for him. So they go to Leapfrog's secret lair called the Lily Pad, which we know because it's literally written on the building that he's in giant neon letters. And they argue about how they're going to infiltrate. Daredevil wants stealth because, that's kind of his thing. She-Hulk wants to smash. And there's a really cool sequence where Daredevil's taking out, 5 guys, or 3 guys, maybe, at once, armed with crossbows. Of course, they never lay a hand on him. And then Jen comes in and takes out another 5 of them. Basically, they get Luke to safety. Leapfrog tries to run, but I think he jumped out a second-story window and broke his legs. And afterwards, Matt and Jen are talking, and they wind up sleeping together. Kind of makes sense. They're both superheroes. They're both lawyers. They clearly like each other. There was a weird thing that was kind of obvious. It was just there for it to be a decent shot. They're in Jen's house, and you see this shot of them where they're standing in her bedroom, but it's just like their feet like up to the ankles, maybe the shins, and then the door closes. And I'm sitting there thinking, why is the door closing? Who do they think is going to walk in on them? I'm probably forgetting to mention that Matt's representing Luke because he told Jen that Luke had made some suits for him, and somehow she didn't put it together at that point that he might be a superhero. But anyway, the next day, Daredevil does the Walk of Shame, which is just so funny. And Nikki comes bursting into Jen's house like, we got to go to the gala. And Jen does this full-on fourth wall break, which is most of that scene. Like, shouldn't this episode be over now? Like, it had a very satisfying conclusion. Trust me. Wink. But no, they go to the Female Lawyer of the Year gala. And apparently it's not awarded to one person at a time because there's a whole line of female lawyers up on stage. And when it comes to Jen's turn to give a little bit of an acceptance speech, that is the part I hate so much. Because Intelligentsia apparently hacks the screen behind her and starts showing all the things on her phone that, Josh cloned. So, I mean, you've got this woman who is a successful professional lawyer and a superhero, and of course a group of men have to get together to take her down. Some people might look at this and say that I'm unreasonably livid about it, but I mean, what was this the idea? Because, I mean, it looked like somebody was on a mission to get her blood. But first they have to slut shame her, like on one of the biggest nights of her life. And Jen obviously loses it, and she wants to hunt them down, but this group of soldiers were going to show up. I think it's damage control, like the LA division. I'm not entirely sure. And it kind of ends with her, it looks like she's finally, really hulking out. Like she almost doesn't have control of her emotions. She calms down right at the end and looks at the camera. It's not entirely clear to me whether she's looking at the screen or at something else. And then the episode's just over. So clearly the next one's going to start with her being in trouble, yeah? And so we'll probably end up in a court case where, I don't know, she has to defend herself or something. Or finally, the very last episode will finally figure out who's been behind all this, or is it still going to be kept in the dark and they're really going to push for a season 2? Because there haven't been a lot of season 2s of any of these new Marvel shows. I can't actually think of one that has had one yet. And they've been at this for more than a year, so you'd think it had been time. I don't know, man. I just think the slut-shaming has to stop. I mean, if we're doing it to our female superheroes now, I mean, you expect that in the real world, but does art have to imitate life like this? I don't know. Anyway, that's what I think. I'd love to know what you guys think, so, leave a comment down below, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and, we'll be back next week with the next episode. And until then, I've been Scott, and this has been an Instant Review, an offshoot of opinions no one cares about. Everyone has opinions. This one was mine.